die in the name of freedom. They speak of liberty and justice, but for who?
Okay, what a trailer that was. I do indeed love that trailer. It was the first one I saw for Assassin's Creed 3, and it looked so cool. I was super excited for it, and today we're going to talk about it. Welcome, once again, my friends, to Assassin's Creed Ranked. In this series, we take a look at all of the Assassin's Creed games that have been released, or at least the mainstream ones, and we put them on a tier list so that we can decide which ones are good, which ones are bad, all that fun stuff. We have done the first Assassin's Creed game, and we've done all the Ezio trilogy, and while I was working on the Ezio trilogy, Lark, my brother, was playing through Assassin's Creed 3 so that we could go ahead and hit that one. That's why this one is coming out so soon. We got a lot to talk about today. If you haven't watched the previous videos, I highly recommend doing so that you can see where they all fall on the tier list. But if you just want to hear about our thoughts on Assassin's Creed 3, stick around because we got a lot to say. As always, we grade these on 4 criteria. Story, how good is the story? Does it hold up? History, how historically accurate are they? Gameplay, is it fun to play? And characters, how engaging and interesting are the characters? Then we grade all that and put it on the tier list based on the grading. Now, Lark is going to be the one who mostly runs this show because he's the one who played it. He has the most, up-to-date memory on it. But that trailer was cool. Lark, do you think that the game holds up compared to that trailer?
No.
No, okay.
Not in the slightest.
All right. Well, let's jump right into it. So, first, give us your initial thoughts on it.
My initial thoughts when I first saw the game that was coming out, I was super excited because I'm a bit of a patriot. I love my country, and so ooh, Assassin's Creed in America? I got really excited. I got really, really excited. I was still bummed we weren't getting Xiao Jun, but I was yeah, that sucks and all, but I'm gonna get to play as an American assassin. Oh boy! And even through my first couple playthroughs, I was kind of underwhelmed. And playing through it later, even the remastered version, in my opinion, has not aged with much dignity. And we're going to go into the explanation as to why. As always, we start off with, we have tiers. We go story, history, gameplay, characters, and we're going to start with story.
All right, so give us the basic bullet point rundown of the story.
I'm going to try and do this as simply as possible. I am prone to tangents, so just, Raven, if I get too off topic, just steer me back.
Yeah, I'll steer you back.
All right, so we start off where we left off with Revelations. Ooh, the world's gonna end because of a giant solar flare, and only this ancient artifact temple can stop it. And so they go into the temple, they unlock it with the apple, only to realize to get to where they really need in the temple, they need a key and they also need power sources to make it so that the key will actually work. And then Desmond collapses due to the bleeding effect and starts reliving the memories of one of his ancestors, an English assassin, or so we thought. He's actually a Templar. Spoilers, of course. But and basically part of the tutorial takes over as Haytham Kenway, who goes over to the colonies during the French and Indian War, at least the start of it, and he recruits all of his Templar buddies to try and find the precursor site with the help of some Indians. They manage to find it, but they can't unlock it because the key only works on the inside, not on the outside. And as a result...
Convoluted nonsense.
Convoluted nonsense. But I didn't mind it so much because Haytham was a genuinely fun character. We'll get more to that later on. But while he's there, he doesn't leave empty-handed. He gets busy with a local Iroquois woman and gets her pregnant. And then he, pieces out.
Correct.
Then we wake up and we say, like, okay, well, we still need to find the batteries to make the temple function. And while we're looking for those in real time, you will be living through Connor's memories to try and find the key and where Haytham put it.
Right. And so most of the game is Desmond going back and forth between playing as Connor, the main character, and coming out of it to help find the power sources.
Indeed. And I'll be focusing on the Animus for the most part,
yeah,
and then I'll switch over to talking about the storyline outside of which. So, with Connor, you start off as a kid, and being raised in an Iroquois village, and you do a lot of running around. It's very tedious.
Very annoying.
Yeah, it's a tutorial. It's not entirely unpleasant, but it gets old relatively quickly. Then, suddenly, Templars.
Yeah.
Charles Lee, who is basically the second in command of Dearest Daddy, comes out and pins you against a tree and starts yelling at you, going like you are not worthy to slick the dust off my boot. Now, please give me what I want.
Isn't very nice.
Let me go!
Listen to that. He knows English.
Small for a savage.
More spirited, too. We have questions for your elders. Only tell us where your village is, boy, and you can go.
Best do as he asks, child.
I could snap your neck, you know. A little more pressure, and pop. The sad little flame of your life extinguished. You are a nothing, a speck of dust. You and all your ilk, living in the dirt like animals, oblivious to the true ways of the world. The wiser among you recognize the shape of the future. They throw themselves at our feet and beg mercy. But not you, it seems. No. You cling desperately to your ways, too ignorant to know your folly.
And then get surprised when Connor doesn't like him. Weird, I know.
Yeah, we'll get into him.
Yeah, and the characters, definitely. Actually, I'll get to him in history. But anyway, village gets burned, Mommy Dearest dies. Sad, but apparently the Templars may or may not have done it. It's weird.
They are so unclear. Okay, we'll get to it. We'll get to
that. But anyway, so Connor grows up with a chip on his shoulder, and eventually he has an interaction with Juno through another weird piece of Eden, but I think is just a messaging device. Because why not? Yeah. And basically says, hey, guess what? This temple's going to be breached, and it's your people's entire purpose of existence to protect this temple, and you got to stop the Templars before they breach it and find it. And he's like, well, what do? Go find the assassins. What are those? Go find this guy named Achilles. He'll explain everything. He goes to find Achilles, who is the last remaining member of the assassins in the North American colonies. And he basically says, piss off, kid. I'm not doing that. I'm crippled, and I'm old, and I'm cranky.
What? I was told you could train me.
No.
And Connor's like, but I'm a naive young child. Please, won't you educate me? No.
Please?
No. Oh, well, okay.
Okay. Just literally.
Well, okay. And so, over a couple years, he trains Connor, starts to make him understand the concept of the creed, gets him set up. And then they go, and then slowly but surely, Connor gets involved in the goings-on of the American Revolution. He's there for, the Boston Massacre. That's actually his first encounter in Boston. He gets involved with the Boston Tea Party, and slowly he starts to work his way into the Founding Fathers because there's the belief that the Templars are backing the British to further repress and continue to get their stranglehold over the American colonies. And so far, I was like, oh, okay. But then they pull a fast one on you.
Yeah.
Because they say, oh, well, no, the Templars aren't backing the British. No one is. They're backing the Americans, too. They just don't like the way you're running the American Revolution. However, at the same time, they also say, well, you're the one that screwed up. Because you're the one that screwed up at Bunker Hill and Lexington and Concord, because if we had our way, we would have told the Patriots to lay down their arms, and we would have told the British to do the same. You're the one that started this war.
Any last words? Wait. A poor choice.
Come to check up on Church? Make sure he'd stolen enough for your British brothers?
Benjamin Church is no brother of mine. No more than the Redcoats or their idiot king. Oh, I expected naivete, but this... The Templars do not fight for the crown. We seek the same as you, boy. Freedom, justice, independence.
But
But what?
Johnson, Pitcairn, Hickey, they sought to steal land, to sack towns, to murder George Washington.
Johnson sought to own the land, that we might keep it safe. Pitcairn aimed to encourage diplomacy, which you cocked up thoroughly enough to start a goddamn war.
It's like, but you're the one that started the Boston Massacre.
Remember back when, morals were clear and you didn't feel guilty about every action you take?
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, even in the first game where it's just kind of like, it was like, these guys are doing the wrong thing, but arguably for the right reason. And this time it's just like, are the Templars trying to be the good guys or the bad guys? They can't make up their minds. And it's just, it's so weird. They can't decide how they want this story to go. And fast forward through convoluted story later, eventually you meet your father, and you basically form a uneasy truce with the Templars.
Temporary.
Yep, because why not? And eventually, you just get into another hissy fit with your father and say, well, no more working with the Templars. Yeah, that's legitimately his reason.
Because he has a hissy fit.
He has a hissy fit with the Templars, and then he goes off.
Enough! Who did what and why must wait. My people come first.
Then let's be off.
No. You and I are finished.
Son.
Do you think me so soft that by calling me son, I might change my mind? How long did you sit on this information, or am I to believe you discovered it now? My mother's blood may stain another's hands, but Charles Lee is no less a monster, and all he does by your command. A warning to you both. Choose to follow me or oppose me, and I will kill you.
Does his own thing, goes back to hunting the Templars, and after you hunt through each and every one of them, you finally kill Daddy Dearest, and then you finally kill Charles Lee, which is what you've been trying to do.
Yeah, Charles Lee was kind of the main target.
Yeah, he was kind of the main target, and from a historical standpoint, I understand why, but at the same time, it's just...
He was such a bland villain, I'll be real honest.
And they could have done so much more with him.
Okay, so that's basically the story in the Animus, right?
Okay, yeah.
What about outside the Animus?
Outside of the Animus, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, not like in a, oh, this is hilariously fun. I'm more like a...
This is so terrible.
This is so stupid, I couldn't help but laugh.
This is asinine. This is...
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you go throughout, you get to travel out and act as Desmond and actually do assassin stuff as Desmond, which I kind of somewhat liked, where you go and get these power sources and you run across Daniel Cross, you meet Warren Vidic at the end too, all that jazz, and you actually get to be an assassin with Desmond, which I kind of like that, like, finally, like, I didn't want to be an assassin to finally, like, I understand what I have to do. I appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
But then as you're going around and traveling outside of the Animus, Juno will talk to you and tell you basically how they got to the state. And basically, we figured out the sun was coming. The sun was going to, like, cause us problem. So we started all these contingency plans. The first one was trying to absorb the sun's rays through 4 powerful towers. Well, that was taking too long to build, so we scrapped that idea. Then we thought, what if we built, like, a shield to go around the entire world? That would cost too much power. We couldn't do it. We couldn't even cover, like, a 1/12 of the world. We possibly could do a city, but we kind of threw that away. Or, but then they said, like, so we scrapped that idea. Then their third idea, and this is my personal favorite.
Yeah.
They were going to launch a piece of Eden into the air and force everyone to think happy thoughts.
Because since a piece of Eden makes illusions into reality, it would somehow save them because they were all thinking good thoughts.
Yeah. So we went from absorb the sun's power, shield it off to think happy thoughts.
Please, like,
Okay.
yeah.
Just.
But then the big ending, when you get everything powered up, what's the big twist ending?
Oh, this is so dumb.
This is beyond.
So basically, at the very end of it all, at the very end, you finally find the key.
Yeah.
You go in,
Yeah.
and Juno's like, just place your hand on this thing, and the world will be saved.
Yep.
And before you do, Minerva, the Isu from Assassin's Creed 2, pops out and goes,
Lord knows how she got there.
Some say the stork brought her.
Like, just, if the whole place was meant to house Juno's memory, how the heck did Minerva get there?
How did
Because Minerva didn't know Juno was there, so if she was loaded into the same thing, how did she not know?
Because she was hiding in the back of the fridge. The last place you would expect to look. But regardless, they go through, like, she basically spends, you'll save the world, sure, but Juno will come out, she'll escape, and she'll try and enslave everybody. But so you should just let the world burn, and then you can lead it into whatever you want. Now, I think in the original game you actually had the choice to choose between, but
I don't remember that.
But the canon ending, and even in the remastered, is like, okay, you have to let Juno go. Oh, and Desmond dies, by the way. Like, in order to let them go, Desmond has to die. I don't know why, but Desmond has to die, and Juno escapes. Yeah. And so Desmond
and somehow the world is saved.
Yeah, Desmond finally achieves. He's finally a peak assassin. He kills Warren Vidic. He uses a piece of Eden and busts into Abstergo and busts his father out, which was actually really cool in my opinion. And then he dies. I'm like, well, screw you.
Okay, so we've talked about the story enough.
Yeah.
Let's give it its grade. I gave it a D. After everything that you gave me, I gave it a D. But what do you think?
I'm going to be generous and give it a C because the starting off, like with Haytham and that little twist, I gotta admit that was actually pretty good. That was pretty good. So I give it a C. But everything else, it's really convoluted. It doesn't know which way it wants to go.
It takes too damn long.
It doesn't know what's like. It's like, do we want to support the American Revolution or the British actually like the sympathetic good guys? What the heck am I watching?
See, here's the thing. When I first saw it, I thought, okay, the assassins are going to be on the side of the revolutionaries. The Templars are going to be on the side of the British. Very basic. But when they said, no, it's going to kind of play both sides, where both sides to kind of do bad things. I'm like, oh, well, I mean, I guess that could be kind of clever, but they don't even do that. It's like the Templars basically say, no one supports the British. We don't support the British. And yet you keep supporting the British. No, we're trying to help people. Like, there's this one, I'll never forget it, William Johnson, the one who was trying to help the Iroquois. When you go after him, he's trying to steal the Native American land from them, or like forcing them to sell their land. And when they keep refusing, he starts killing them off. So you kill him, and you think, okay, yeah, we did the right thing. William Johnson, you're the bad guy. You were trying to steal land from the Indians, and you were killing them to do it. So we stopped you. Oh, what have you done? Oh, what have you done? You can't moralize your way out of this one. Sure, I can, because you think King George cares about them. They were going to come in and steal their lands anyway. I was just trying to get their land so I could protect them. I was trying to keep them safe from evil King George.
And make a small fee.
But the thing was, I thought Connor would argue. Only for your own ends. But no, he doesn't argue. That's the thing that I hate. Connor never argues with these people.
And neither does Desmond.
He never like questions their ideology. It's never a battle of ideology. Like, for example, when he talks with his father, like, his father tries to argue, the assassins once fought for peace, you know? That was once what they fought for. And that was a good thing. You know, peace is a good thing. But now they're all talking about freedom and liberty, and freedom's messy, freedom's dangerous, because they're just going to lead themselves into more chaos. This war is the proof of that. And then you try to argue, yeah, but the people decided on who their leader should be. The people have the freedom to do that. Then he's like, the people are stupid. The people are stupid. It's all just a bunch of people who have a lot of power, hiding out in a room on their own, making decisions for the people that the people think is in their favor when it's really in their favor. And Connor has no response. Connor doesn't argue it.
What is it the Templars truly seek?
Order. Purpose. Direction. No more than that. It's your lot that means to confound with this nonsense talk of freedom. Time was. The assassins professed a far more sensible goal. That of peace.
Freedom is peace.
Oh no. It's an invitation to chaos. Only look at this little revolution your friends have started. I have stood before the Continental Congress and listened to them stamp and shout. All in the name of liberty. but it is just noise.
And this is why you favor Lee?
He understands the needs of this would-be nation far better than the Jobberknolls who profess to represent it.
It seems your tongue has tasted sour grapes. The people have made their choice, and it was Washington.
People chose nothing. It was done by a group of privileged cowards seeking only to enrich themselves. They convened in private and made a decision that would benefit them. Oh, they might have dressed it up with pretty words. That does not make it true. The only difference, Connor, the only difference between myself and those you aid is that I do not feign affection.
It's like,
Nah.
It's like, and then at the very end, apparently there was actually a speech, a deleted speech from the game that was supposed to come out at the very end, where it reveals that Haytham was right the whole time. But Connor's just not going to give up. And I'm like, damn it! What's wrong with you? Okay,
It gets better. Because they may have taken that speech out, but they might as well have left it in. Because after the whole shenanigans, you can go back into the Animus. I don't know how, because Desmond's dead. Just don't think about it. And you can go see what Connor was like. And Juno says, well, you did what you need to do. You can F off now and do whatever you want. And so Connor can then go to Boston and see them, or Boston or New York, and basically seeing them shooing the loyalists out, doing, bye. And then he turns around and he sees a slave auction. Doesn't make any comment, doesn't address anything. I'm like, oh, are we going to go free him? Nope, just stare at him like, oh, I see where they're going.
It's supposed to be like, oh, look what we've wrought. Look what's happened. Look what... And here's the thing. I think this is the biggest problem we have. But you know what? Let's save it. Let's save it for gameplay. Let's move on to...
No, we're saving it for history.
Well, story is a C. We'll give it a C. Let's move on. We've been on that long enough. History. So, Lark. Mm-hmm. Let's try to keep it brief, because I know you got a lot to say. What did you grade history as?
I gave it a B.
Okay.
So,
now explain.
Here's the deal. There's a lot of things they actually got quite well, even to the point like where Charles Lee dies. Charles Lee dies in a tavern. Historically speaking, he did. He actually died of tuberculosis, but, we can change a few things around for the sake of the gameplay. There are a few things that do somewhat ring true. They are like the Boston Massacre scene. I thought they handled very well. Tea Party was interesting. They missed out a few small details here and there, like why wasn't everybody else dressed like natives? That's a kind of common thing. Paul Revere's ride, that was kind of interesting. There's a lot of things they sort of touch upon well, but the problem is it's very clear to me there's almost like an agenda to the history here, because throughout the entire experience of the gameplay, if you say you had no knowledge of the American Revolution going into this game, if you played this game, you would think the Founding Fathers were a bunch of selfish, greedy assholes with no redeeming qualities whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because we see, George Washington, the father of the dang country, led his men through the American Revolution. Was he the best military commander? Absolutely not. But he undoubtedly kept the army together and did untold things for the country and held it together when I think few other people could. But they constantly criticize George Washington on the Templar side, like, he's indecisive, he's a terrible leader, he doesn't know what he's doing, and those were criticisms that were lobbied at him from the time by Charles Lee historically.
Yeah, so those are real criticisms.
Yeah, those are real criticisms, and I'm like, all right, game, show us the other side. No.
They never show George Washington do anything redeeming. That's the thing that gets me. It's like we hear these criticisms against Washington, but we never see him either being, yes, he's indecisive, and we never see the criticisms confirmed or shot down. It's just like, well, he's there.
Yeah, like he's there. I think the only Founding Father that actually is held up in a somewhat redeeming light is Samuel Adams.
Only somewhat, though.
Only somewhat. He's more played off as neutral, as is Paul Revere, who just kind of seems like a dope. Then,
yeah, they kind of played him to be an idiot.
Yeah, they also established Ben Franklin, but he's in for 2 scenes, and then we never see him again. Just do we see any of the other Founding Fathers? Listen, if you want to say, hey, the American Revolution wasn't perfect, there's some demons in the closet here, by all means, do that, but it's very much, they were almost afraid to go into that thing, because some of the people were complaining when the trailers first came, I'm afraid this game might be a little too, pro-America, boom, rah-rah, and so I almost felt like they tempered themselves to stop doing that. Also, the fact this is a Canadian company making this game, they probably have a different perspective.
I think the problem that we have here is Assassin's Creed has always been a battle of ideals, right? And I think they tried to do that here. I think they tried to say, no, this is less about country versus country. This is more ideal versus ideal. And you know what? That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The problem with this, though, the problem with doing this, though, is they did it wrong. Even in the other games, like, Assassin's Creed 1, it wasn't just, the clear Templars and the clear Assassins. You know, there were betrayers among the Assassins. There were bad Christians and bad Muslims. There were bad Knights and bad Saracens. Like, you had bad on all sides. In the Ezio trilogy, yes, most of the Templars you go after are clear-cut, morally evil people. But you also see their ideology is all about control. And some of them did believe that what they were doing was the right thing and what was necessary, even if you didn't see it that way. So there was still that hint of our ideology versus your ideology. The problem herein, though, is we never see the two ideologies clash. You see Connor, who's not fighting for an ideology. What's he constantly keep saying? He's doing this for his tribe. He's doing this for his tribe. He wants to save his tribe. Okay, that's a fine goal. But at what point does he say, I now represent and respect this ideology, and I want to fight for it, and I oppose your ideology? The problem is he never brings his ideology to bear against the oppositional ideology, and even the oppositional ideology doesn't seem to always hold water. Like, to me, I felt like it would have been just... Look, you may have been afraid of, we don't want to make it just America versus Britain, but I feel like that would have been easier to follow than all this, where every time you kill someone, you almost feel like, man, I shouldn't have killed them. And then in the very end of the game, you do feel like, why did I do this?
Yeah, well, the thing is, the ideological idea is, like, if the Assassins support liberty and freedom, it makes sense for them to support the American revolutions. The Templars support control. It makes far more sense for them to support the British then, because the British would have cracked down and made the colonies far more subservient to them had they won the revolution. So it makes little sense for them to support the American Revolution when they would have had an uphill battle trying to enforce their control on a newly freed government, because a newly freed government would have been incredibly chaotic. Not to mention, all of that nonsense going down, the Templars are routinely shown to support the British. Assassin's Creed Rogue, they support the British. And Assassin's Creed Black Flag, we see a few British Templars. In Assassin's Creed Syndicate, their goal is to control the British Empire. In Assassin's Creed Valhalla, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Alfred the Great, one of the first true English kings, is shown to be the progenitor of the Templar Order. So why suddenly in 3, after centuries of Templars being associated with England, do they go, nah?
But back to history. Okay, so we kind of got off on that. The thing is, I think the problem with the history here is, while they got a lot of things right, for sure, they presented a lot of the people and events in a skewed way. And I know interpretation is everything.
Well, no, because that's the problem. We barely got an interpretation. They didn't. It would have been nice if we could, like, there's a moment where you see Hatham and George Washington starting to argue, and then Connor breaks it up. I would have loved to see that argument go down. Shows like why did you attack these indigenous villages? I wanted to hear Washington respond. Like, because here's another problem I have. Like, the Indian tribes are portrayed as the stereotypical perfect saint-loving, live with nature, do nothing wrong.
They weren't.
They weren't. Like, there's actually a campaign, during the Saratogan campaign, General Burgoyne requested help from, native allies. And there's some wires got crossed, some messages got crossed along the way, and some braves attacked a colonial settlement, and they actually killed and scalped a colonial woman. And this was a massive field day for the Patriot Press. Burgoyne himself was upset about it. And there are other actions, like, I'm not going to pretend like what the colonists did to the natives was entirely fine and kosher. No, absolutely not. But to pretend like the other side was just complete saints is laughable.
Well, like, you brought it up just a second ago. The problem is they will throw out an accusation of historical accuracy and historical motive, but then never allow the other side to justify it. So when Hatham says, Washington, why did you condone these attacks on the Native Americans? Washington is not given the chance to explain himself before Connor steps in and goes, what? You did that? How dare you? And then runs off to go save him.
Well, no, he doesn't even go off to go save them, which makes the story even more convoluted. He goes off to go stop them from attacking the Patriots, which... It's so... It's such a...
Why did we give it a B?
Why did we give the history?
Why did we give history a B?
Because what they do show, like, there are things that do show, like the Boston Massacre, the Like, there's a lot of things they do well. But I also didn't want to put it up further because there's also so much they left out. Because if you played this game, you would think, oh, the American Revolution only happened north of Philadelphia. Nothing happened in the South. Ignore all that. In fact, there's some points that are very confusing to me. The only way you actually get to do anything involved with the American Revolution in the South is by sending your assassin recruits down to do stuff. And some of the stuff is absolutely mind-boggling. For example, if you send assassins down to South Carolina, one of the missions that you can send your assassins on is called the Swamp Fox. Now, I first playing this perked up because me and Raven are both from South Carolina. We were born and raised South Carolina. I actually teach South Carolina history. And Swamp Fox Francis Marion is one of the heroes during the Revolutionary War for South Carolina. He was great at guerrilla warfare. But your mission? Go stop him. He's doing unorthodox tactics. He's fighting in guerrilla warfare style, which is what the American colonists were good at.
It's what you do.
Yeah, it's what assassins do. Why are we saying to go stop him?
But let's move on now. We've been on history way too long. We're making this video way too long.
There's more I have to say, but I may go back and talk.
Well,
about
the problem is I think we're getting confused with history and gameplay within history.
Well.
Anyway, let's get on to gameplay.
Okay, gameplay B.
Okay, so let's talk about the gameplay.
Gameplay it's similar to the Ezio trilogy in terms of combat. There's the counter kill system and like counter guard break and all that. It works relatively well. It's fun to do. A lot of the kill animations you do are very impressive. Interworking the flintlocks into the game works really well. So there's a lot of fun in doing that. There is some fun also to be had with the ship missions going through and wreaking havoc on the high seas is okay, but in my opinion, there's not enough reward for the naval missions to justify them. And on top of that, it's not like in later games where you can just sail around and do whatever you want. You have set missions and you have to do them. But that's kind of as fun as that is, that's kind of where a lot of the good stuff ends. Like a lot of the cool stuff they kept on building up in Ezio, like the bombs and all that jazz, they kind of take away with Connor. Like the only bomb you have now is smoke bombs and tripwire bombs. Like none of the other cool stuff you got, that's all taken away. And the cool pistol you sort of had attached to your hidden blade, that's gone now too.
Yeah.
You start off with one flintlock, and if you go through the convoluted crafting system, you can create a second holster so you can go with two. And that's where I'd like to get into a lot of the faults here. They start to really work with the idea of a homestead, and that you go and sort of support it. But unlike, say, like Monteriggioni, or Rome and Constantinople, where you sort of like buy businesses, sort of prop them up and do that, you have to go on missions to help specific people set up their trade around, which is honestly okay. I didn't mind that so much, but like the way you can make money with the crafting and buying and trading systems and then sending out convoys is overly convoluted. It's not explained very well, and so I really didn't quite understand until like my third or fourth playthrough.
Yeah.
And on top of that, just a little thing, if you ever do try and get into the convoy business, never under any circumstances send out a naval convoy. It'll get attacked. I don't care what you do. It will always be attacked. Moving on from that, we also see another thing return, the Assassin's recruits. Only this time,
They suck.
they suck. Because
Do something!
Do something!
Do something!
Do it! Just do it! So just do it! Just do it!
Fine. I'll do it myself.
here's the deal. You had, instead of being able to recruit, like, what was it, like 10, 15, 12 assassins in the previous games?
Yeah. And most of them didn't have backstories or anything. They were just, random people who were being oppressed.
Yeah, in Revelations, you could give them, like, special missions, which they would actually flesh out a little bit of character. But in this, you have 6 assassins you can recruit. And instead of just doing one mission and then, hey, like, just saving them, like, hey, you're part of the club now. Instead, it's, now there's 3 districts in each city, Boston and New York, those are the only cities you get to go to. you have to do these little liberation missions, about like 10 of them, and then you can do a final mission to recruit them in to the assassins. And each assassin has their own little special technique, and some of these are pretty cool and fun to use. When they work, they seldom actually work as intended.
Yeah.
And they, when you call on them to fight, in Brotherhood and Revelations, when you call on an assassin's recruit to come fight for you, even if you just recruited them, they'll be able to hold their own for a little while, at the very least, and only get stronger as time goes on. Not these assassins. No. They will eat crap so quickly. It is ridiculous. The only way to make them viable fighters is to constantly send them on assassin missions abroad so that they can gain experience. Then finally they'll be somewhat decent combatants. But the problem is, when you send them on a mission, it'll give you a percentile chance of how their chance of actually succeeding. Go off of XCOM logic, deduct about 50% off of whatever score they're about to get. If it says 95% chance of success, that means 45% chance of success. Because I kid you not, I sent 2 assassins to do a mission that was not like 95% chance of success, and they both came back wounded. Failed the mission too. It's like, just so, unless that says 100%, they're failing the mission. You're going to have to make your peace with that. The assassins, recruits, I kind of like what they were trying to do here, but it failed in the execution.
For real.
But there is another thing that they actually do well. Hunting. They actually included hunting into the game, which is actually going to be your main source of actually getting real income. And that's a lot of fun to do. And honestly, I am tempted to say, Ubisoft, just remove the assassins bit and just make this about a guy who's trying to establish a homestead in the fur and trapping trade. I think that would be kind of fun.
All right. Gameplay's a B, you said?
Gameplay is a B, and there's one more thing I want to add, because I have to give props where props is concerned. When the game first came out, they had a convoluted lockpicking mechanic, and thankfully in the remastered, they scrapped it almost entirely.
Good, because I don't think anyone liked that.
No one liked it, which is why in the next game, you just kick the lock.
All right, so far story is C, history is B, gameplay is B. Let's go into characters, and this is where things are going to get bad. Let's start with the good characters, of which there is one.
Yeah, the one good character is, ironically, the Templar, Haytham Kenway.
Haytham Kenway's a G. And even though he's the objective bad guy of the game, he makes so much more sense than anyone else. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Whenever you question him about what he's doing and why, he gives very clear, concise answers. Like, he's not questioning any of this. He's like, this is the clear path we need to take. When you ask him why the Templars, he's like, why? Because why not? You know, like, we Templars have understood for so long that mankind is weak and flawed and foolish, and they require, nay, they want to be led by somebody because they're all sheep instinctively. We are the shepherds who are meant to lead them, and because we understand the way the world actually works, we're the best choice to lead them. Whereas we want to give them peace. We don't want war. You're the one who started this war, Connor. We wanted peace. We wanted the British to just give up on this place themselves, which they might have done had it not been for you. And here's the thing. I think he's living in his own little fantasy world there, but at least he sounds convicted. And he has charm. He reminds me a lot of Ezio, only taking himself way more seriously.
No, let me tell you what he is. He is the 18th century James Bond.
Yeah, I can do that.
That's pretty much it. He's suave, he's got charisma, he can be sarcastic. Someone like I kind of love him berating Connor because there's a lot of truth to it, and
and that's what hurts.
And that's the problem. Like, I would have loved for Connor to have been his intellectual equal and be able to argue and debate with him on footing. Like, if Ezio had been there, I think that would have been a more even match. But they put all of the character and class into him, and now that we've talked about it, let's mention his son. Connor, I started out somewhat liking because of his. Starting out as his naivete, but he has almost zero charisma, and he has 2 modes: disinterested and angry. I counted. You actually were there for this. I counted how many times I saw him smile in game. I think 2. 2 times he smiles, even when he's helping out at his homestead missions, and he's just like, "How are you adjusting to life here?" He speaks like a robot, and I know they're trying to go for the stereotypical stoic Indian, But give the man a little bit of character, please. You're coming off the Tales of Ezio, one of the most charismatic characters in fiction, and you decide to go with this bland as bread
No,
guy?
it gets worse than that, because you came off of Ezio and gave us Hatham. And Hatham we thought was a good follow-up to Ezio. And then you go from Hatham to this guy, and he's humorless, he's boring, and he's a one-note nut. His whole thing is just, I want to save my village, I want to save my village.
Lee.
Charles Lee, I want to save my village, I want to save my village. Charles Lee, where is Charles? It gets boring. And I think what's worse than even that, one of the biggest criticisms, and we'll bring it up when we get to Black Flag about Edward Kenway, is that Edward only really joins the assassins near the end of the game. I can't even tell if Connor really joins the assassins, because there's so many times where he claims, I don't care about this war, I don't care about this conflict, I don't care about that, I just want to get Charles Lee and save my village.
Yeah, there's that. And also, it's weird because there are instances where he does sit, like when he's talking to his assassin recruits, because you can do that. You can talk to each of them twice outside of missions. And when you do, he acts like as though, like, yes, well, this is why we fight for the assassins. This is why we do what we do. But in the main gameplay cutscenes, he acts like the assassins are only a means to an end for him.
Yeah, and that annoys the hell out of me. And I think that's a big problem. He doesn't have conviction. He has no conviction. I think that's why I like Hatham more. He at least has conviction. He at least has something he knows he wants and is fighting for. With Connor, it's like, what do you want, Connor? Ugh, it's awful.
Yeah, Connor just like, and perhaps if he wasn't following the tales of Ezio and Hatham, it wouldn't rub us the wrong way so much. But I could live with like the sort of naivete early on, but just
now let's talk Charles Lee.
Yeah, Charles Lee. Ironically, I think his portrayal compared to like what we know of him from history is like he looks like a piece of crap. Like he looks like bedraggled and like he's like just crawled out of bed and doesn't bathe himself. That kind of portrays him in historically, because like a lot of people considered him to be very uncouth. And so, but he's also kind of a weird, like he's weirdly aggressive and honestly,
for no fucking reason.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so when he's first introduced, he's kind of like Hatham's little teacher's pet. He wants to please Hatham. He's like, oh, I really would hope to learn from you, Master Hatham. You know, like he really wants to learn from him. It's all that. But then once once we see him again, once we're playing as Rana Hagedden, or Connor, he sounds like a raving madman. You're not even fit to lick the dust off my boots. You people are writhing in the mud like worms until we arrive. And everyone else is just watching him. You know, I thought William Johnson, who was portrayed as someone who cares about the natives, I thought he'd go, hey, Charles, you need to calm down, man. He's a Native American child. But no, he just goes, better do as he says, lad. And I'm like, no, are you not going to stop this raving lunatic? And that's what he was portrayed as for the rest of the game. A raving lunatic.
Yeah. And then, of course, the other Templars, like there's Thomas Hickey, who they portray as... Honestly, he was my favorite Templar.
Yes! He was my favorite, too.
It was great that's actually another point to history, because he actually was running a counterfeiting scam in real life, and he is kind of like, anytime there's a drama around the American Revolution, he's kind of like a default bad guy, because it looked like he was also doing some other shady stuff. And him just like, I'm just here to get drunk and get laid. I'm just like... Okay.
Fair enough.
It's one note, but it's simple. Then there's Benjamin Church, who you will forget about. I forgot about him too.
I don't even know who he is.
There's the Admiral, and by golly, he existed. Let no one say he didn't exist.
He was definitely a person.
Yeah, he was. However, you can actually completely ignore him. You don't have to kill him. You do not have to go on the naval mission to kill him.
You have William Johnson, who professes himself a goody two-shoes when he's not actually a goody two-shoes.
But he spells himself so well as a goody two-shoes, it's probably the English accent.
Yeah, probably.
That's probably what does it. But, yeah, then, looking at some of the other characters of note, Achilles. I actually like Achilles.
Achilles was okay. The problem was he was overcooked but underdone. And what I mean by that is they built him up as something more than what they presented him to be.
Yeah, I would have liked to see more, because like there are interactions where he has spats with Connor, and again, I would have liked to see Achilles put more of a fight up against Connor, because occasionally he does put him
I really felt like they wanted to undermine the freedom aspect of the revolution. Like they wanted to undermine so much the colonist fight that they denied any characters the opportunity to defend their position of liberty. It's almost like they said, look, everyone knows why the colonists wanted to defend liberty. Let's hear the British side.
Well, yeah, that's another thing, because let's transition over from characters to like the characters outside of the Animus.
Well, before we do, I think that we need to address some of the like Sons of Liberty, like George Washington, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin.
like I said, Samuel Adams is the only one that has anything revolving around a character, and at least it's nice. Like he's sympathetic to Connor. He tries to help him out as long as it helps out his own ends.
George Washington just was there.
He's just there to show, hey, look, he's indecisive. Are we going to see any of George Washington's good points? No. Go away. We it's an American Revolution game. We threw him in.
Now you've seen him.
Yeah, good. Benjamin Franklin.
Barely there.
He's better in Rogue. Paul Revere. He was in the game.
Yes, he was. And he was kind of an idiot. They just played him up to be a doofus.
Yeah, just... Like, but...
Okay, now we can go outside the Animus.
Now outside
I'll just have to get that out.
Outside of the Animus. Desmond is okay because we get to see him go and run around and kill things and actually have some... sort of some solace with, going in and
He gets to actually be a character.
Yeah, which is nice. Rebecca, she's kind of just there. She gives into some details about Daniel Cross, and beyond that, no, nothing else. There's some father-son drama with William Miles, who basically is...
He's just a douche.
He's just a douche, but he'll admit it, which I will give him credit for. And then there is...
Sean Hastings.
Who is a douche but won't admit it.
Sean is a pretentious prick in this game. In all the other games, he was kind of annoying, but in this...
There was a little bit of endearing to him. In this one, like, he just basically he shouts off on, like, political tirades, but just like... Desmond, just like his forefathers, is not apt enough to the task of trying to actually counter it back. And I was screaming at my TV because I was like, I know, I actually can counter your point there, you moron, because I actually know a thing or two about the American Revolution, because he compared the American Revolution to, like, well, why did the, why should the colonies be upset about taxes? Like, why is it wrong for King George to actually demand that you start paying the bill? And my response to that is, there's more to it than that. No taxation without representation. For one thing, there's a history of solitary neglect here. There was even the fact that a lot of British Parliament members were on the side of the American colonists, thinking that the British government was going too far. But no, we don't want to address that because we have to keep jabbing at the American Revolution.
And I think that was the problem with this game. I think we can sum up all the problems with this game there in that they didn't want to make this game. Now hold on, hear me out. I don't mean they didn't want to make a good Assassin's Creed game that takes place during the Revolution. They didn't want to make the game we were expecting. We were expecting a game, and here's the thing. Oh, we're afraid that it's going to be a hoo-hoo, rah-rah, America power game. But you know what? I would have taken that over what we got. Because here's the thing. What we wanted was a game where we saw the ideals of freedom and liberty presented in the colonies, opposed to the ideals of maintaining order and tyranny by the British. And we wanted to see that battle go out. Now, if you want to show bad on both sides, feel free. That's okay. But that's not what they wanted to do in this game. They wanted to say, hey, you thought that the American Revolution was fighting for something good? Well, little did you know that actually the British are probably more sympathetic. There could have been more engaging and interesting leaders than the ones you got, because the ones you got, like George Washington, were not as good as you think they are. And even when the revolution was officially over, there were still lots of problems inherent, like the fact that the founding fathers were actually selfish pricks. There's still slavery. The Native Americans are still mistreated, and blah, blah, blah down the list of things that were wrong. And my thought is, did you want to make an Assassin's Creed game in the Revolutionary War, or did you want to make a political pandering piece about how the Revolutionary War was bad? And I think because they don't want to answer that question, it's awful.
Yeah, well, for back to characters, I gave them a D, just because, with the exception of Haytham and Achilles, there really isn't much redeeming there. Overall, it gets a C, because there are some things, like there is some gameplay aspects that you can really enjoy about it. The beginning twist is pretty good, but the idea is just like, every time, like the story, it goes in twists and turns that don't make sense. They clearly don't know whether it's like, well, the American Revolution isn't as good as you think, but also both sides support the American Revolution. Just like, and so it's just so mind-boggling to do it. Like, listen, I didn't expect you to make a sis-boom, rah-rah, America, the best thing ever. I expected you to show the skeletons in the closet, but I expected you to be competent enough to explain this is why stuff happened back then. At best, if you played this game with no understanding of American history, you're going to think that the Founding Fathers were either evil or complete incompetence, which is far from the case. They were men that had demons in their closet as well. They did good things, they did bad things, just like their British counterparts. And Assassin's Creed 3 thought they could be mature enough to handle this, but I don't know what happened along the process along the way, but they failed. And overall, Assassin's Creed 3, I think, has aged poorly. And so
I think it's genuinely one of the worst games.
Yeah. However,
I would have given it a D. I'm surprised it got a C.
I'm giving it a C because there are some things to it that do okay. But that's just the thing. It just does in those areas okay. So I am being very generous here by giving it a C, but it is the first time we have seen an Assassin's Creed game go below the B tier. But don't worry, it won't be the last.
All right, well, I think that's where we can wrap it up, guys. As y'all can probably tell, we didn't like this one. We did not like this game. I think if you summed it all up in just a few sentences, I think what Lark and I are trying to say is it was a game that wanted to be more mature than it actually was, and it ended up making everything sound historically and story-wise stupid. Some interesting gameplay mechanics, some interesting ideas there that they really pull out and try to do better on in later games, but this will also be the last game where we have Assassin's Recruits. So they abandoned that after this. I don't know why. I guess they thought, oh, well, I guess if it wasn't a good idea in this one, but whatever. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And again, guys, this is just our take on it. If you disagree, feel free. We're never going to take away your enjoyment from anything. Hope you enjoyed this one. And I'm working on Black Flag, so that'll be the next one that comes out. And I will see you, and Lark will see you in our next videos whenever they come out. Take care.
Have a good one, guys.